the night before, they were asking me if I wanted to screw in my shoes, which at the time I had no clue what they were talking about.
Oh, I think I
And
know what you're talking about. Go on.
yeah, so forecasted was looking like a foot of snow
Okay.
for race the night prior to the race. So of course it snowed, and then race day ended up getting there, and there's a whole bunch of snow on the trails. And this is a single track. It's actually a bridle trail around Wyandotte Lake, and so not really knowing what I was getting myself into. I didn't have screwed shoes, and there was a lot of snow. Thought, it's going to be, it's, nice fluffy snow. It should be really easy to run on, and especially with brand new, good treaded shoes. So at about halfway through the first lap, I'm doing pretty good, but it's starting to get slippery. So it's just getting footing and everything like that. There's a couple spots where it's real steep. It turned into a sledding hill, basically. Everybody's sliding down on their butts and stuff.
Really?
So
Dang.
yeah, it kind of escalated from there. Just as I'm coming through the end of the first lap, everything felt great. But the second go around, after you've had all the 50Ks go, all the 20 milers take off, and the 10 milers ahead of you, that second lap, it was a sheet of ice. And it was awful. And then at that point, I realized why they were saying they wanted me to screw my shoes. So there was lots of falling.
Yeah.
And
this is your host, Brendan, and you're listening to the Ordinary to Ultra podcast. This podcast is all about helping you run your first ultramarathon and beyond. Tune in to hear new and experienced ultra runners share how they got into running in the first place, what inspired them to run an ultra, training and race day tips, and the gripping story of their first ultramarathon. Prepare yourself to be inspired as you hear stories of grit, sometimes failure, but ultimately triumph when our guests finally cross the finish line. Few clothing companies out there have actual trail runners design their trail running clothes, and Territory Run Co. is the few. Brett Farrell, the founder of Territory Run Co., has been an avid trail runner for over 15 years, and he has designed some of the most thoughtful, functional, and just cool trail running clothing I've ever worn. 5-panel hats, t-shirts, sun shirts, shorts, socks, beanies, and more. They've got it all. I personally, though, love Territory Run Co.'s products for 2 reasons. First, I love their vibe. Most running brands are built around this performance is everything vibe, like work hard, sweat hard. That's fine, but we have enough of those. Territory Run Co. is built around the feeling that you get when you go out and try a new trail for the first time, or when you go on a trail running trip with friends. Second, Territory Run Co. builds their products for trail runners by trail runners. I have 2 of their hats, and they're my go-to running hats because they're incredibly light, super breathable, have super cool outdoorsy patterns, and I can throw them in the washing machine, which is super convenient. But what I love most about them is they have a little loop that goes around that floppy strap in the back of the hat that keeps it from flopping in front of your face if you're wearing it backwards, which is fantastic. Anyway, if y'all are in the market for some trail running hats or clothing, go check out Territory Run Co. And lucky for you, Brett has hooked me up with a coupon code for the listeners of this podcast. So head over to territoryrun.co and use the code ordinary to ultra20 to get 20% off your first order. Both the website and the code are listed in the show notes of this episode. So go down to the show notes, copy the code, tap the link, and get some sick gear. All right, thanks for listening. Now back to the show. Hey, Matthew, thanks so much for being here today, man. I'm super excited to dive into your history, what got you into ultra running, and excited to hear your story today, dude.
Oh, glad to be here. Hopefully it'll be a good time talking with you. And I'm sure somebody will get a kick out of the stories.
Good. Oh yeah, there will be plenty of kicks to be had. I'm sure there's some hard things, some good things, and excited to get into all of it. Um, before we get into the running stuff, Matthew, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself, like how old you are, where you're living these days, what you do for work, what your family looks like, that sort of thing?
Well, I'm 37 years old. Live in Harrisonville, Missouri, which is a little town south of KC. Um, I got a 14-year-old son, and who's quite a runner himself, and yeah, that's pretty much it. I work at
Awesome.
Walmart distribution. Been there 16 years, and I own my own taxidermy business. So
Taxidermy?
yeah,
Oh my gosh. Do you
yeah,
and Eric? Okay, I failed to mention Matthew here is a friend of Eric
yep,
Ramirez. Is that
yep.
right? Eric Ramirez, who came on, it'll probably be 4 episodes ago or so. So anyway, so that's how this connection happened and how I met Matthew. So, but I know Eric's into hunting. So do y'all hunt together?
That we haven't done
No.
yet. We kind of
Oh,
uh, met through. Actually, my dad used to work with him, and he kind of hit me up one time. I was thinking about trying to get a running group together in the area, and
ah,
he hit me up on that. So we basically only ran together so far, but I'm sure the hunting
mm-hmm.
will happen too.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. I mean, yeah. I mean, has are you pretty into hunting, or were
Oh yeah,
you? I don't know.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. I've hunted.
So it
I was about 12 years old, and it's been
okay.
pretty much a pastime since I've been a kid. So
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Cool. Um, I was curious if running is sort of like taken over your like hobby time. I felt that way with Eric. He's like, well, I got into hunting to, or sorry, I got into running to like help hunting, and then
yeah,
the running kind of like took off. So, is it
yeah,
similar for you?
it's pretty close. I think as I've gotten into the longer distances, and the training time kind of does seem to soak up
Yeah.
because your long runs and stuff, I don't have a whole lot of time during the week to do. So that kind of eats up weekend time. But so
Yeah.
yeah, it does
Cool.
kind of cross over. But I kind of hunt like I run. I hunt way back in there and get a lot of miles in. So it's kind of a good cross training for me. So
It's true. Yeah. Time on your feet.
yep,
um, Solid, dude. Well, thanks for diving into that a little
yep.
bit. Um, I'd love to get into Matthew. What what got you into running in the first place, and when ish was that?
Well, I mean, I started running when I was pretty young. Dad was in cross country in high school, and when I was growing up, I remember running probably as early as 8, 9, 10 years old. Used to run through town. Did a little bit of cross country in middle school, and then it wasn't until uh, kind of my later years in high school we got into orienteering,
Hmm.
and that kind of sparked, a little bit of the more of the running in me because it's not necessarily based on distance. It's more on finding checkpoints and navigating, but you cover quite a bit of distance in some of those. So once I kind of realized that I was covering some miles, I really found I was a little bit better runner than I thought at the longer distances. I kind of tried getting more into that, and then of course orienteering kind of ties into adventure racing, which started kind of doing some of that as well. And then I don't know really what honestly got me into the ultra other than just the long distance, seeing, what I could do. I,
Yeah.
with the adventure racing, you're doing some races, like we've done some 14, 12-hour stuff. So you kind of
Phew.
see your potential, and then I always enjoyed the running part aspect more than like the bike and the canoe stuff. So I kind of figured I would tie that more into what I'm doing and stuff. And that's
Okay.
basically where I got my start with the running ultras, is just
Uh-huh.
seeing the
Adventure
distance I was
racing.
doing and trying to tie it into something a little bit more oriented toward just the running part. So
Yeah, that's what you liked. And to help define adventure racing with me here, because I've heard like I've heard the term used in different ways, like adventure running maybe or adventure racing, but
right.
what did adventure racing look like? Like what were you
Adventure
doing for
racing
those?
is basically a 3-part race, and they do what they call trekking, which is on foot, running, however you want to do it. A lot of people don't run it, some people do. You have bike sections, and then you have canoe sections. So it's similar setup to like a triathlon, but with not the swimming part, more paddling. So but then the whole time you're doing that, you're navigating to checkpoints that are plotted pre-race by the director of the race, and they plot them kind of in a scattered manner, and you try to find the fastest routes to those checkpoints. So it's basically pick as
Mm.
many checkpoints up as possible, as fast as possible in the time period that they give you, kind of deal. And they go
Ooh,
from, I think we've done some that were 2 or 3 hours long to upwards of 30. So, and yeah, I I
goodness.
didn't finish the 30 hour. That one I bailed out on a sketchy paddle section in a thunderstorm. But
Oh, yeah,
yeah, I
that'll do
my
it.
favorites were the night races. They had a race called Dust to Dawn, where you just race at night and find checkpoints in the dark, and it's pretty fun stuff. But,
That's crazy. Was this all in Missouri, like around where you're living, or did you
uh,
travel a bit for that?
I've traveled. We've done some, of course, in Kansas. Actually, some of the places that I've done some of my adventure or ultra running as well.
Hmm.
And then the 30 hour was in Wisconsin. Um, and yeah, so there's several that used to be put on here in Missouri. Not as many as there used to be, but they're all over. So most states have them, and they're fun to get
Hmm.
into.
That's hardcore, dude. That's
Yeah,
like, yeah, ultra running's hardcore, but like, that's a different kind of hardcore. Yeah, it's like the triathlon hardcore where you're like doing three different sports
yeah,
in one event.
yeah,
Blows my mind. Good
yeah,
for you.
yeah. But
Um, and you noticed that you liked running more. Like that was like the part you
yeah,
gravitated to more.
yeah. I mean, I wasn't necessarily the strongest bike or paddler, and the running just felt natural. And especially when I was on trail, I felt like my my speed, and I don't really feel like I was focused on distance. When I'm on a trail, I can run and just run and run and run and not really feel like I've covered much ground. But it it just kind of felt more natural to me. So that's kind of where I fell in love with the running longer distances during that, because when you're orienteering or adventure racing, you don't even really pay attention to distance. You just are going, and it's amazing sometimes how far you go before you realize how many miles you've covered. But
Dang. They don't even tell you like you'll probably end up doing like
they
this much.
kind of do, yeah. They kind of give you a ballpark estimate sometimes. I mean, the hard part about it is because it's all based on your route choice. I mean, because the checkpoints
Yeah.
are
So it's
all
variable.
over. So you could hit it about, you could get lost. We get lost all the
Yep.
time. So
Yep.
there's no telling how many miles you might cover if you're not a great navigator. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely putting some miles in for sure without really even knowing what you're doing.
What was the longest distance you traveled in an adventure race?
Oh, I honest God, I don't even know. Like,
Yeah,
I,
you don't. Did you track that
I
sort of
never had
thing?
a watch at the time or anything like
Yeah.
that, and
Hmm.
so I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you'd cover like the 30 hour. I think they were looking at, you know, probably 30 to 40 miles a bike, maybe 20 some odd miles on foot, and probably about 10 or 15 on paddle. It may
Oh,
be more than
goodness.
that. So, but
Goodness.
yeah, so
That's cool. That's cool. Nah, we can keep in mind that some of that's on bike and some of that's on
yeah,
paddle. And I don't know
yeah.
if paddle is maybe even harder because you're like using your arms.
I think the
Maybe.
paddle thing for me was always just the conditions. I mean, it's either,
Yeah.
I don't think
Yeah.
I've ever been on the water and it been nice. It's always
Yeah.
either storming,
Rainy.
or the one in
Yeah.
Wisconsin, the river was pretty gnarly.
Yeah.
Um, Lakes are either winds blowing, you know, stuff like that. So
Yeah. Dang. Well, that's cool, man. That's a cool intro. That's a new intro. I feel like most folks that come on here, they started running when they, I guess you did some cross country track stuff too, maybe, but
yeah,
a lot of people start that way or as a way to be fit or they read the Goggins book and they're like, all right, I'm going to do this.
yeah,
But you have this adventure racing thing, so that's cool to share. um, um, so when ish did you make the well? You mentioned maybe you don't remember when you learned about ultra marathons.
I
Do you maybe
feel like
remember
I
that?
when I was orienteering, because that's kind of an annual deal. They have more of the orienteering stuff in the wintertime. I ran into some people because it's kind of a mix of the, you know, ultra group out doing the orienteering, and adventure racing stuff. So I
Yeah.
feel like I learned from one of them about a race, because it
Okay.
was actually my first race was actually at a Wyandotte Lake, which was one of the areas that we've been racing and orienteering as well. So
Okay.
um, I don't exactly remember who or how, but I feel like I ran into somebody and they said you should try this race, and I'd seen the distance and I'm like, okay, I think I could do that, you know.
Hmm.
Um, but it was yeah, it was more than I could do at the time.
Yeah.
But
Okay. So you hadn't done any like half marathons or marathons before. You
I
had
think
done
running
these.
up to that, I had done a couple. Uh, I do recall actually getting in a half marathon, with the actual group that put on the 50K. So they
Huh,
and that was kind of my training into it. It was
okay.
kind of just a fun little run I did with my sister and
Okay.
girlfriend, and but yeah, we ran that race prior to, and then I signed up for the 50 after that because I thought, oh, you know, what's another 20 miles?
Sure, Matthew. What's another 20 miles?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a jump, man.
yeah,
That's awesome that you did it
yeah,
though. Like I don't know, there's different jumps between different distances, right? Like um 10K is like half of a half marathon, and then
yeah,
half marathon's half of a full marathon, and that seems like a big jump because you're like, whoa, I'm doubling
yeah,
doing 13 miles twice. Like, whew. Um, so yeah, going from half to 50K.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And
that's
I feel
solid.
like most people make the marathon first. You know, I know a lot of
Yeah.
people who are getting into the ultra that do the marathons quite a bit, and I actually just did my first marathon, true like marathon run, last year, or the year before. So I kind of did it backwards, but
Well,
yeah,
I mean, I liked doing the marathon first
yeah,
because it gave me the confidence that I could run a 50K. Like, oh yeah,
right,
I could totally add on another 5 miles.
yeah, exactly,
Um, but it's road running usually for like if you love trail so much you don't want to do a road, like yeah, go
Yeah.
do the 50K. I mean, it's
Right.
pretty similar. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, just another 5 miles.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
um, yeah, cool, dude. Okay, so how long ago ish you said this
I'm
50K
pretty sure
was?
it was February of 2015 was my first 50K attempt,
Sick.
which comes with its challenges because it was here in Missouri. You never know if you could have snow or it could be 70 degrees in February. So,
Yeah, February. Yeah, that's a tricky time.
yeah.
Um, Before we get into like what that 50K looked like, you mentioned doing a half marathon for like training.
Mhm.
Um, what kind of training were you doing at that point? Did you have a training plan? Were you just kind of
Absolutely none at that point. No, it was
awesome?
kind of, I just felt like that was something in my, zone of miles I could do. I mean, with the
Yeah.
half marathon, because I ran the half marathon like I was like trying to be competitive and ran it hard.
Okay.
So I thought,
Yeah.
well, if I just take my time on a 50K, then there shouldn't be an issue. But
Yeah.
uh, yeah, so training wise, it
Um,
was more so just kind of that half, and then maybe a couple runs here and there before just to test some shoes and stuff like that. But
okay. So were you putting in like a certain amount of were you trying to run a certain amount of times a week, or were you like even more relaxed than that even? You were
I
like,
was
well, that'll be
I'm
fine.
just super active outside of just my normal. So
Yeah.
it was just kind of and in February for me, it's winter time, so I'm
Yeah.
just coming off the hunting, so I'm normally in
Got it.
pretty good shape from hunting and traveling and stuff like that. But
Okay.
yeah, as for I'd say probably during that time I was probably doing some orienteering as well, if I can recall, because it's typically the peak of the orienteering is the winter time. So,
Okay.
but but yeah, no. As for like formal training, there really wasn't anything going on there. So
That's awesome, dude. No, I appreciate you being straight with that. Like, yeah, people do these with training plans. Some people
yeah,
like, yeah, like I don't have a training plan personally for and my 50K. My first is coming up in a month or so.
awesome.
Um, I just kind of found something online and loosely am following that idea. And yes, other people like go couch to 50K. Like,
Right. Yeah.
um, I mean, it sounds like in your case, yeah, you got all this cross training going on. You're already doing a lot of time on your feet and these other activities. So you're like, yeah, this should be fine.
Right.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, that's awesome. So yeah, anybody listen out there, yeah, you can. Well, I don't know. Let's hear how the 50K went
Yeah. You,
before we say you can not do a training plan. But
yeah.
um, yeah, anything else I want to ask you about that? Nah, yeah, let's do it. Let's hear. So this, yeah, how did this 50K go? And I know this was, yeah, 8 9 years ago.
Yeah.
I typically ask like recall everything you can about the day of the 50K, like
I can
from like
remember
when you woke up
quite a
and
bit of
like
it.
yeah, oh awesome, that's
Oh
awesome.
yeah,
Like how
yeah,
did you sleep? What'd you eat for breakfast? Like how you felt when you were on your way over? Did you like have to get a hotel or was it close? And then anything notable that happens during the actual race.
during
Like
the
I
actual race.
tripped
Okay.
it and broke my wrist on mile 5. Hopefully not. Any crazy crap that goes on or
Right,
feelings you had at certain points, just let us know what those were
right.
until you cross the finish line.
Okay.
Let's hear all of that
Well,
stuff.
I'd say probably a good lead into it would be the fact that I bought a brand new pair of shoes that week, and
Okay.
literally no use whatsoever, no break-in period. I decided I was going to run in this 50K with them, which they turned
Hmm.
out to be great. But whenever I
That's
went to
good.
go up there for race registration the night before, they were asking me if I wanted to screw in my shoes, which at the time I had no clue what they were talking about.
Oh, I think I
And
know what you're talking about. Go on.
yeah, so forecasted was looking like a foot of snow
Okay.
for race the night prior to the race. So of course it snowed, and then race day ended up getting there, and there's a whole bunch of snow on the trails. And this is a single track. It's actually a bridle trail around Wyandotte Lake,
Hmm.
and so not really knowing what I was getting myself into. I didn't have screwed shoes, and there was a lot of snow. Thought, it's going to be, it's, nice fluffy snow. It should be really easy to run on, and especially with brand new, good treaded shoes. And um, I ended up driving there that morning from Harrisonville, which is about an hour. So I had to get up super early. Um, Probably didn't
Yeah.
eat but anything but like a bagel, from what I can recall. Bagels are always kind of my go-to breakfast in the morning race day. Um, but and then of course, got there, and it's a big race. There's a lot of people. I think I've seen that same race a couple times, and there's been upwards of 200 people from what I can recall. It's a
Wow.
pretty good size race.
Is it
And
just a 50K distance, like, or is it
they
like there's a
do
50 miler and whatever?
50K, 20 mile, 10 mile, I believe.
Cool, cool. Okay.
So
So some
yeah, so
smaller ones leading
it's
up.
pretty popular. But yeah, so race starts super early. Everything leading up to the race was good. Hit a goo before I
Yeah.
started. Because that's what I was told to do, but I didn't
Did you
really know
say
any
you
better at the
ate?
time.
Yeah, did you say you ate breakfast before?
I
I
had
can't
a
remember.
bagel. Yeah,
Bagel, that's right.
bagel.
So you
Yeah,
had some
for like
food and then you had a gel.
yeah.
Okay.
So I hit the
Um,
gel right before, like you're supposed to, or at least that's what it says. And
what
um,
time did it start at?
I think it started at 6 or 7 in the
So was
morning.
it like totally dark then?
No, it was light, but
Okay.
it might have been 7, because it was just sun's just coming up. It's
Okay.
kind of that
That's good.
twilight hour kind of deal. But I of course try to get in the middle of the pack, because I figured I wasn't going to be the slowest, and I probably definitely wasn't going to be the fastest. So I just kind of wanted to get in the middle. And we start, and of course it's nice fresh powder going for the first 5-6 miles. But then I start to realize that as people are running, it's packing everything down, so it gets a little slippery going from that point.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 10-mile loop, so
Okay.
you do 3 10-mile loops around the lake, and pretty rigorous terrain for eastern Kansas. It kind of, I think, throws some people for a loop who are not from the area, who come to the race there, because they don't realize how steep it can get in there. But it's
Hmm.
it's pretty steep. So
Hmm.
um, at about halfway through the first lap, I'm doing pretty good, but it's starting to get slippery. So it's just getting footing and everything like that. There's a couple spots where it's real steep. It turned into a sledding hill, basically. Everybody's sliding down on their butts and stuff.
Really?
Um, so
Dang.
yeah, it kind of escalated from there. Just as I'm coming through the end of the first lap, everything felt great. But the second go around, after you've had all the 50Ks go, all the 20 milers take off, and the 10 milers ahead of you, that second lap, it was a sheet of ice. And it was awful. And then at that point, I realized why they were saying they wanted me to screw my shoes. So
Yeah.
there was lots of falling. uh,
Yeah. Oh.
and yeah, so I mean, it was that was probably the most unexpected part of it is I'm just imagining the snow being a great little cushion to run on, and it definitely was not that after first lap.
Yeah. Um, and when talk to me about the screws because I haven't seen this. But do they take the sole out of the shoe and then
No,
like
actually,
screw some
it's
screws through it
super.
or like
It's
what does that look
super
like?
simple. You just go to the hardware store and you get the smallest little hex screws you can imagine,
Okay.
and you take a drill and drill them into the bottom of your
Okay.
shoes,
So the
and
head is sticking
the head. So
out.
the you actually screw it with the pointed part into your sole. So that's kind
Yeah,
of
but they're
when I
small.
first seen it,
That you're
I was like,
scared.
I
Yeah,
don't know if I want
sketchy.
that. Like, surely I'm
Stab
going
my
to get
foot.
stabbed in the foot. But they reassured me. They're like, no, this is done all the time. And but
Yeah, and then
I
that's
didn't do it that race. I did it later on in another race, and it worked out. But
okay. Cool. Thanks for explaining. um okay. So it's slippery, you're slipping all over the place, second lap. Um did you like fall and destroy yourself or
oh
you're
yeah,
just getting
yeah.
annoyed? Like,
Their second lap around, probably about halfway. I hit the halfway aid station, and my knees were just tore up. I mean, from falling on them, twisting them. I probably don't have the best knees. All the years of playing soccer and stuff like that, and I was starting to kind of get some pain in the outer parts of both my knees, and wasn't really never really had that feeling before while running, so it kind of worried
mm-hmm,
me.
mm-hmm,
Um, so of course, I kind of asked the guy if there's anything I could do. He's gave me an Advil and told me to just tough it out. I'll be fine. It's normal. So yeah, but yeah, it didn't get any better because the last they have a section in the very end, right before the start finish, called the Three Sisters. It's three big hills, one after the other. And as I'm going up these hills and coming down, I'm just tearing my knees up even more. So I ended up sitting there running through my head whether or not I wanted to finish or try to do another lap. And of course, I get to start finish, and I decided not to continue. So, but yeah, it was, I don't know, I was definitely disappointed, but at the same time, I typically try to err on the safe side on injuries. I don't want my running to ruin my knees for the rest of my life. But at the same time, it's one of those deals where the mileage is. You think in terms of what you've done before. It's like, man, I could have totally done that. So
yeah, that snow. Yeah, I think most of the DNF stories that have come on, I mean, at least half of them are like it was dumping rain
yeah,
and it changed everything.
yeah,
So I didn't finish or snow like slipping around. That's no fun, dude.
yeah,
I've done a couple snow runs and if I didn't have my micro spikes on, which is like the same thing as the screws,
right,
like no fun.
yeah.
um, dang. So were you feeling like pretty bummed out when you pulled the plug
Yeah,
mile 20?
yeah, I did. I mean, it was kind of one of those deals where the race director, he hears that stuff all the time. He knows when people are out and when people could probably make it. And I mean, he of course tried to talk me into going on, but in the end, I was just kind of worried that I'd do some damage to my knees that I couldn't fix, because I'd never really been in that kind of pain before with any of the running or racing and stuff that I'd done over the years. So
Mm-hmm.
it was a little nerve wracking, but it I knew I was going to do another one as soon as I was done, though. It's kind of one of those deals where, all right, that's not enough. I need to get back at it. So,
Mm-hmm. So how soon until you were re-signed up?
that fall actually. So I got
Yeah.
signed up
Okay.
for another race. It in October of that same year. So
Oh, cool, cool. So
yeah,
did you sign up for that? Like, did you
it
sign up
was
for it like right after you
yeah, it was probably
didn't
less
finish
than a
that one?
month. So
Yeah, yeah.
I knew at that point I had time and could work my
Yeah.
way up to that being
Mm-hmm.
comfortable. And yeah,
Nice.
it was kind of a no brainer. I was like, I got to do it. So, and I figured that time of year, it's got to be better than a foot of snow.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Good point.
yeah,
Yeah. Don't have to worry about that
right.
at that time.
Yeah.
Um, well, we can't say that Matthew's DNF was because he didn't have a training plan. Um, it was the snow. We can blame the
At
snow.
least that's all
So,
I'll say is
everyone
my
listening,
excuse.
that's right. It was the snow. So, you don't need a training plan.
Right.
But if you die, it wasn't my fault.
Right.
Nice.
Yeah.
So did you do anything different between that time and your October 50K? Did you do anything different? Did you get a training plan, or did you kind of just do
I
things the same way?
I did run a little more. Yeah, I did put some more miles in. I think I'd signed up for some smaller races like the 5K. You know, I did a few 5Ks locally, and then um, you know, I think I got into another half at the time. Um, but yeah, as for like a formal training plan, running daily or every other day, really, I've never really been that good at training. Up
Yeah.
until I got my Garmin watch, I haven't been good at that because at least the Garmin tells me what to do. So, but
Mm,
but yeah, so that one was kind of similar, but with probably some more miles in between. So
nice, nice. Um, yeah, to take a pause on that. What watch are you rocking?
I am doing the Garmin 255. Uh,
Nice.
yeah, so
Yeah, Forerunner 255. Is
Forerunner
that right?
255. Yeah, yep.
And that thing will give you some training plans or advice.
Yeah, so I put in my race plan, race date, and all that stuff, and
Yeah.
it gives you a daily training deal, 3 different phases. If you get it signed up, you know, put your stuff in early. I have put some races in there short term, and it kind of messes with your training a little bit. But if you know get several weeks out, you can get a pretty good training plan based. You know, like right now for my 100 mile, I'm in a build phase. Just started the build phase, so I'm getting longer distances and faster times and stuff. So, but it basically just keeps me going, tells me when I should rest and when I'm stressed out and all that good stuff. So
Yeah. Isn't that nice? Yeah. That's funny. I wonder how many folks listening have an official running watch or whatever.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm rocking a Garmin too, and yeah, it'll I love that. It tells you when you're stressed,
yeah,
or your recovery is delayed because
yeah.
you've been
You got
stressed
you
today.
got 90 more hours till you can do anything.
Yeah. Come on, Garmin. Get off my back, dude. It was a hard day. It's so funny. Yeah. But that's cool, like I love that you're using that
Yeah.
um free training plan.
Oh yeah.
And it takes into account how your runs were
Right.
like the previous days. If you like put in a long run, then it'll be like, yeah, you should take this many days to recover, and like maybe your next run is a chill
Or if you
run.
work
Like
too much. That's
You've
my
been working
case.
too much. Are you on your feet a lot for your work at
Oh,
the distribution
absolutely.
center?
Yeah. I drive a
Yeah,
forklift,
oh,
so yeah, on my feet a
yeah.
lot. Yeah.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, that makes a difference.
yep.
Well, cool. Thanks for sharing, dude. Yeah, the 250 is like relatively affordable, I think,
Oh,
too. I
yeah.
know
Yeah.
some of those garments get expensive, but nice.
Yep.
Um, cool. Took that turn. I'm curious too, before we talk about this Redemption 50K, when you do your running, it sounds like, I mean, a lot of your training is doing other things as well. But when you run, are you usually going solo? Do you usually run with a buddy? You mentioned a running group. I don't know if that was,
Yeah.
yeah,
So most of my running solo. I just, with my schedule with work and my most time I have is during the week. I just kind of get out for an hour or so. But yeah, as for the group that we were trying to get together, it kind of fell
uh,
through because I switched schedules at work, so I was going to be more available. But that kind of fell through.
died.
Plus, I started my taxidermy business about that time as well, so that pretty much took most of my evenings away as well. So yeah,
I
so
feel that.
yep,
Yeah.
busy.
Yeah,
But
that can be
yeah,
hard.
on my long runs, I typically uh, I do like to kind of like Eric, for instance. I get together with him when I can. We just started running together. We're actually going out this Saturday to go. I'm gonna go introduce him to Wyandotte, so he'll get to go do the 2 loops and see how it goes. And I'm sure it's gonna be fun. It'll be a sloppy mess. We've had so much rain, but
Dang, you're gonna do 2 loops on that. That's the race that you did.
that's, yeah,
Yeah, around the
basically.
lake.
Yep.
Cool, cool.
So
Fun.
yeah,
That's cool. That's cool. Cool that you do that with the long runs. I'm doing a long run tomorrow. It'll be with a buddy.
yeah,
Um, that's always fun and safe, probably. To
yeah.
bring a buddy on the longer runs. Um, cool. All right. So Redemption 50K, October of
15.
2015.
Yeah.
Yes. How did it go? Oh, before you tell me that though, I haven't asked you about nutrition.
Oh,
Even
okay.
in the last 50K, like, were you like, you said you mentioned a goo before you started the last one, but
Hmm.
um, maybe for this one, did you have like a nutrition-y sort of plan? Like, yeah, I'm gonna take a goo every 30 minutes, or I'm gonna eat a quesadilla at this aid station, or whatever.
I I still didn't have much of an idea on the nutritional side of things at that point because the first one I did, I literally just packed goos because I thought I'll just
Okay.
hit a goo every hour and a half or so, and that should get me through. I didn't realize the
Yeah.
calorie intake that I was gonna need to make that 50K
Yeah.
happen.
Okay. That was the first one you said.
That was the first one. Yeah, the second one wasn't much better. The AIDS saved me on that one. But it's nice. A lot of those races, if you're in the good races, a good race, well put on race by how good the aid stations are, in my opinion. Because I've had some, races where I ran and the aid stations was like a table and you just had to grab stuff yourself. But the better ones, you have people there that are knowledgeable. They know what you need. You just tell them how you're feeling and kind of, what's going on, and then they can kind of direct you on what you might need. They might just throw everything at you, but it kind of motivating to know that somebody there has a little bit of insight on what you might need at that point in time. So
That's cool.
because you could literally just walk up to a table and grab everything, and you would probably know what was best. But I mean, and sometimes it's not what you think you need. It may be M&Ms or
Hmm.
pickles or whatever.
Yeah, the pickle juice. You
Yeah,
doing the
pickle
pickle
juice.
juice?
Gotta have the pickle juice.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's just I hate pickles, so I don't know if I'm gonna do that one.
But
I don't
yeah,
know
the
about
second
that.
second one, It was kind of flying by the seat of my pants. I didn't even actually have like a bag at that time. I had a
Mm.
just one of the little handheld water
Nice.
jugs.
Yeah.
I figured lighter the better, but now I run with a bag all the time. So found it's a
I
lot.
mean, was the second one a loop as well? Was it a
It was.
something
I'm
else?
pretty sure it was like a 6 or 7 mile loop or something of that. So it wasn't nearly as long a loop. You had to do more laps,
Mm-hmm.
but not as rough terrain. All single track, but it was a little bit less in elevation and toughness, I believe, from what I
Less.
can recall at
Okay.
least.
Good.
And it was October and it was like 60 degrees, so it was a lot
Yay!
better.
Yeah, that's a lot better.
But
Um, well, similar to the last question with the 50K, how did this go? Like morning till finish line, what were you
well,
feeling and how was it going?
not how most people would probably expect. I actually had a bachelor party the night before for my best friend.
Bro, hold on,
So
Matthew. Did
we
you get
were
wasted the
out.
night before?
Yeah, we were out drinking most of the night.
Oh man.
And of course, I, cut myself off knowing I had a race, but I was definitely
Cool.
feeling it. Woke
Okay.
up the next morning and another race where I was going to just drive up there, but
Yeah.
realized that I was not able to drive. So I had my
Dang.
girlfriend and my son were both going to be going to the race anyways. I said, "You're driving. I'm going to
Hmm.
drink a lot of water and hydrate before I get here." So started
Nice.
the race just slightly hungover. Um, and I figured at that point I was already doomed. But ironically enough, like I was probably in the best shape. Like I felt like in within the first 10 miles, I felt amazing. Um,
Ooh.
I don't know how. I don't know what I did right, but it worked out. So
Yeah.
race started similar, just felt great. It was a pretty good size group. They had a couple different size races going at the same time. Trails were in pristine condition. It hadn't rained, I don't think, in like a week. So they were just, it was just a beautiful day. I mean, sun was out, foggy. Um, so I think all of that kind of tied into how I just felt like it was just a good conditions. So everything pretty much went fine up until about lap 20 or mile 20.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's kind of my typical breaking point of where I start to kind of feel things or start
Hmm.
to not feel 100% is 20 miles.
Hmm.
Um, and of course, at that point, it was a lot of cramping.
Okay.
So, to counter the cramping, I started drinking a lot, which I didn't realize. You can drink too much. So, I
In
didn't
what
realize that
way?
was a thing. But yeah, I think it was like maybe mile 25 or so. I hit a checkpoint and I'm like literally peeing about every mile to 2 miles. Like and which is difficult on trail because you're trying not to like, expose yourself to everybody. So
Yeah, running by.
you're literally
Don't mind
running,
me.
looking around you, and then ditching trail for a second. And so I was getting a little nervous about it. I was like, man, I don't think this is normal. And so next aid station, I was like, this is going to be the most awkward conversation I've had in my life, but I'm just going to ask. So I get up there and I'm like, hey, I'm peeing like every mile, 2 miles. And the guy's like, stop drinking water. And I was like, seriously? He's like, yeah, you're drinking too much. He's like, how many of those jugs have you drank since the last aid station? I said, well, I drank the whole thing before I even like made it probably 2 miles from that last aid station. He's like, dude, you're drinking way too much. So
Huh.
And
Did he?
it wasn't until this 100 miler that I did a couple years ago that I actually kind of dove into what you're really supposed to drink,
Mhm.
how much per hour, because you really got to break it down on those longer races sometimes. And, I realized I was drinking way too much overall my past years of racing. So,
Mhm.
uh, but yeah, so that was probably the biggest challenge with that race was just
Yeah.
over hydrating.
Peeing. Um, I feel ya. I did the same thing in my first marathon.
Really?
Um, yeah, dude, I drank an entire Powerade. It was like one of the big Powerades.
Yeah.
I probably drank some water too, and then drank an entire Powerade because I was like, I'm gonna be hydrated before, and a lot of electrolytes, which
Yeah.
was good. There's a lot of electrolytes in
Right.
Powerade, so I didn't cramp.
Yeah.
But I was peeing. I peed like 4 times within the first hour. I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, here I go again! Oh, here I go again!" I'm like, I was trying to get a 4-hour marathon here, and
Right.
I'm peeing too much. I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep. Not
worse
something
problems to
I
have.
expected. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, no, I finished that 50K in about 6 hours.
Yay!
I think 19 minutes or something like. To this date, it's still my fastest. I don't
Yeah,
know how, but I've yet to run a 50K faster than that. So
dang, young
apparently,
legs
hungover is the
and
way to go.
hungover. Dude, you're full of bad advice today.
I'm terrible at this training stuff.
No, no training plan, hungover. What
Yeah,
else are you doing? New shoes the week before.
brand new shoes. Yeah,
Hey, you didn't mention if you got blisters at all. Were you
I
okay in that
did.
first 50K? Oh,
No,
wow.
I
Good for
like.
you.
I used at the time I was using the speed crosses, Solomon speed crosses,
Okay.
which now that I've kind of learned a little bit more about the ultra, I think they're a little too heavy and bulky
Okay.
for that kind of running, but they are fantastic on feet. I wouldn't if I ever bought another pair of shoes and just didn't want to break them in or anything. That's the pair of shoes I'd be going with. But they
Nice.
right out of the box, I don't think I've ever had a blister with Solomon speed crosses. But
Dang.
you know,
Nice.
so
Well, that's good. And dude, you crossed the finish line of your second 50K. So
yep,
congratulations.
yep.
Um, and how did you feel, when you were like crossing that finish line, mentally, emotionally, and physically? How were you
I
doing?
I was more than ecstatic just to see the finish. Uh, my son, actually, at the time, I think, he would have been 6 years old. He ran the finish with me, which was kind of cool. Good way to finish. And,
That's cool.
you know, I just couldn't believe I did at the moment with the fact of, kind of what led up into the race. I didn't really have high hopes for it. I thought I was going to be signing up for another one the day after to redeem myself again. But, yeah, I think biggest thing with that race was just the guys at the aid station just kind of helping me out and making sure I wasn't losing my mind and that they kept me going. So yeah,
Nice.
it was pretty cool to finish it, knowing that I'd had the tough go with the first one, but I immediately was looking at doing that same race that I'd DNF'd on right after that. So I was like, this time it's happening. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna finish it. So
Sick. um, well, did you sign up for it and do it?
I did.
What's the
Yeah, I've
yeah? What's
actually
the speedy version?
speedy version. It was about 3 to 4 inches of snow and ice that time.
Which is less, right?
Less than the foot of
Yeah.
snow from the original one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was about 40 degrees, so everything was melting,
Oh,
and the
great.
trail was basically like ankle deep water the whole way around. Because it's a horse trail, so it's not really well kept. It's not like you're mountain biking pristine single track. So there's sections where you can go to your knees in mud, and then there's sections that it's completely holed out by horse tracks and stuff like that. So, but yeah, it was the sloppiest race. I mean, feet were wet. I even had gaiters on, thinking I was going to help, but all it did was keep all the junk in my shoes. So
Dang.
yeah, but yeah, no, I finished that one in like I think 7 hours. So, but
Nice. And you
it
did
was
it.
fun. Did it.
You
Redemption.
showed it. That's
Got
right.
that one down. So
Nice, dude. Congratulations. You had vengeance
yeah.
on your first. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, and like, yeah, again, like, speed round. Like, what have you done since then? Too? What other? I mean, distances and
I did
races have you done?
um uh, let's see. Well, I guess from there I did the 50Ks. I did another 50K at the same race again, and then I jumped from there to the 100 mile. I did a 100 mile attempt in Stockton Lake down in central Missouri, and then after that race that I DNF'd in, I did a marathon for the first time, trail marathon, which is a great distance. I like that distance. But that one, of course, was plagued by bad weather and stuff as well the night before. So it wasn't a best of conditions, but it wasn't a bad race. But at that race, I really wasn't like kind of out to just a finish. It was more so try to see how fast I could do it because I knew I could finish it. But
Yeah. So did you
that
bust
just
it?
to say I did a marathon. I haven't done one,
Oh yeah, you're done
but
with that. And
yeah, but and now I'm signed up for another 100 mile. So hopefully get redemption on my last 100 mile.
it's a different one, right?
It is a different one. Unfortunately, the one that I attempted the first time, they don't put that race on anymore. I was really hoping they would, but they
Dang.
they don't. So, but
That's sad. Is it
yeah,
like, do you know why it canceled?
I think they do a lot of road racing, I believe, and I think they
Okay.
just had a full schedule. And
Uh,
turnout wise, it wasn't the biggest race. I think there was only like maybe 14 of us in the 100 mile. So, but I mean, it had like I think a 50 mile marathon. My son did the 10 mile the morning after the 100 mile. So if I had finished, I probably got to get lapped by my
see
son.
him? Yeah.
But but yeah, so no, it was a good race. But just I don't know if they had quite the turnout they were expecting for it. So to do it
Yeah.
again.
That's sad. But I get it. I'm, I am, sort of contemplating maybe someday, like, starting a race or something because it seems
Right.
like a fun thing to
Yeah,
do to get people together.
absolutely.
Yeah, we've got a few in Logan, Utah, but not many. We have a 100 miler. It's like we have a popular 100 miler up here, a 50 miler, no 50K. So
No
there's a gap.
50K. Really?
So someone's
No
got to fill
50.
that gap.
There you go. That sounds like a plan.
Yeah, dude, maybe. Um, Matthew. Um, thanks for sharing your story, dude. And I wish you the best of lucks in your 100-miler coming up.
Yeah.
I'll obviously have to keep tabs on you and Eric, see how that goes. You can
Yeah.
do it. Your Garmin's telling you what to do. So
Yeah.
you've got a training plan. This is
Right.
good. I imagine like 50K, you could get away with not having, but 100-mile,
Yeah.
probably do some training
Yeah. Oh
planning.
yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's sick. So yeah, we'll keep tabs, and um, I'd like to ask you final question of what there's several people listening to this podcast that are new to this, that haven't ran their first 50K, maybe even haven't signed up yet.
Yep.
What final advice would you give those folk?
Well, training plans are definitely a good help. um, and getting a community together with people that kind of enjoy just doing that kind of stuff, it helps out a lot. It's a good motivator. I mean, I didn't realize my potential, I feel like, until I ran with some people who knew what they were doing, and uh, to this day I still am kind of surprised sometimes by stuff that I learn, on just out racing with these people and watching how people do their races, how they set up their food. But if you're getting into the big stuff, you know, diet, training, hydration, I mean, that's all super important, especially if you're getting over that 50K mark. Um, and then just sign up and do it. That's one thing I've found is the most motivating, is literally just sign up. You have no excuse at that point. You just got to do it. So I've got myself into more races just by signing up and saying, okay, now it's done. I got to do it now. So that's about best you can do for yourself. And then I think most people would be surprised at what the potential is. Honest to God, some of the people like the 100-miler, the guys I was watching finish, most of them were over 40s, and most of them were not the type that you would body shape, size that you would expect to be finishing that kind of mileage. And here I am in great shape, trained, and thinking I have the diet and everything figured out. And this 60-year-old man goes cruising by me at 60 some odd miles, like he's having just a nice little casual stroll. So I think you'd be really surprised at what you can do, regardless of what your shape and body condition is and what you do in life. I think most people just underestimate what their potential is. So,
Well said, dude. Well said. Go out there, sign up. You can do it.
yep,
um,
absolutely.
I believe it. I believe it. I believe anyone could run an ultra marathon. They just
Mm-hmm.
got to put in the time on your feet, put in some
Yep.
miles, and have the grit to get through some pain.
Pain management.
Pain management. Yes, that's important. Or you can
yeah.
just be David Goggins and you can just
Yeah.
be in pain and do it anyways.
Right.
Whatever.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks again, Matthew. And do you have a Strava by chance?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't recall what it is.
Um,
I'll have to.
yeah. No worries. You don't need to tell me now, but if you're willing, I can drop that in the show notes, and I can share it with people so they can see what you're up to, what you've been doing, and
yeah.
maybe get some inspiration from your training. And yeah, keep up with Matthew, and um, also I'll say to check the show notes for you can join the Ordinary to Ultra newsletter. Those listening, you can get an email update on when these episodes come out and other ultra running advice. And You can also join the Facebook and Strava groups that I've set up with other new ultra running folk, so we can all get together and cheer each other on, help each other out. It's
Awesome.
a very supportive space. So anyhow, consider joining y'all, and yeah, thanks again, Matthew. Super good to meet you.
I appreciate you
Excited to
having
see
me on
where you
here.
go.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, man.
All right.
Hey, your host Brendan here. I just wanted to thank you personally for listening to today's episode. As someone preparing for my own first ultramarathon, I've found these conversations to be super valuable, and I hope they are for you as well. Whether you're listening on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or somewhere else, make sure to follow or subscribe so you know when the next episode comes out. Also, make sure you check out the show notes of this episode. There's a link to sign up for the Ordinary to Ultra email newsletter, to join our Facebook and Strava groups where you can meet other people striving to run their first ultra marathon, and see any links that our guests may have provided as well. Thanks again, and we'll catch you in the next episode.